Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 126. Paul CURMI and the Mohawk Buck, hunting Michigan and Ohio, and the importance of having a plan B. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Bo Harris with Antler Eyes. You're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast ever, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Jim Burwell from Western Extreme, and you're listening to my favorite Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Mark Hammer from Antler Action Products, and I shot the Hammer Buck, and you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm Jay Scott, and I'm here with my good friend, Dusty Phillips. Dusty, what's happening?
Man, it's just great to be alive. It's great to be free and able to go hunting. It's great to be on the podcast right here with you, Jay.
I am enjoying myself. You know, it's still deer season. You were here in New Hampshire a couple weeks ago, and it turns out, Dusty, we put together a trip for the three amigos that rode together in the big bad Jeep while you were here. And Greg and I are going to come down and join you and hunt in Ohio as during the week of ATA. We're going to go to ATA first.
Oh, it's going to be a phenomenal week.
It's just going to be crazy. So what I did was I said, Greg, I'll pay for all the gas if you drive the Jeep. And he said, let me check with my wife. And a couple minutes later said, I'm in. Let's do this.
It's going to be an epic time. That's for sure. You know, I can't wait.
I can't wait. I'm sure we're going to see some deer, which I'm very excited about because I only see a few deer here and there. So far, all I've seen that was, I wouldn't even categorize it as shootable, was a spike buck that kept running by my stand 5 times.
Hey, at least you're seeing something, though.
It is. Hey, I do enjoy that part.
Right.
So I'm going to stay on the deer here in New Hampshire. Meanwhile, Dusty, I think we should take a little ganter up to Michigan and with our good friend Paul CURMI and learn about what it's like to hunt Michigan where he's at, and how he hunts Ohio as well, and talk about some of the big deer he shot down there, including the Mohawk buck.
The Mohawk buck.
Fascinating story. He's got a lot of really good stories to tell, and he's one of those guys that I would classify as on that far end of the spectrum. Lives and breathes this stuff day in, day out, gets up, thinks about it every single day, hunts every single day during the year after work at a minimum. And then he'll sneak out during Thanksgiving through the garage to make sure he's in the blind during dinner, and then sneak back in before dinner's up to make sure that everybody thinks he never left. He's that kind of hunter.
That's a dedicated fella there.
Yes, and we love talking to guys like this, as you know. So let's without further ado, let's get Paul CURMI.
Let's do it.
Paul CURMI, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. What's happening, my friend?
What's up, Jay and Dusty?
Yo, we're just chilling, man. Chilling here talking about deer hunting. We're psyched to have you.
Better than that, right?
It doesn't get any
Oh,
better.
no, I can talk about deer hunting for hours.
Right. I think deer hunting itself is better than talking about deer hunting, but talking about deer hunting is a very, very, very close second.
Yeah, it is a very close second. I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is you can't wait to get out of the woods and share it with your buddies and your family and your friends. So
Right.
it's definitely an awesome experience and awesome stories and all kinds of, you get a new story almost every week when you go out.
That's exactly right. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I am from mid-Michigan. Well, I would say southern Michigan. It's Stockbridge, Michigan. It's a small town. I've lived here about 5 years.
Okay.
I was born in Michigan, and then I moved down to South Carolina for a couple of years during high school, and then came back when I was 18 hired in at Ford Motor Company when I was just out of high school, 18 years old. Third generation auto worker. My dad worked there, my grandpa worked there, so I've been there. This April will be 20 years now.
No kidding. So you're working on the assembly line.
I'm working on right on the assembly line, building cars. So we build a Ford Focus right now, and we're going to be building the Ranger and the Bronco here in a couple years. So.
Interesting. Now, this is kind of a common thing for the Michigan area. That's, like Motor City and all that stuff. So this is a way of life up there in many ways. Is that correct? Oh, yeah. It's definitely a lot of auto workers around here, a lot of stuff involved in the automobile industry, and a lot of outdoorsmen. Michigan, I think, is one of the top states for deer hunters. I know Pennsylvania's up there, and pretty sure either Michigan or Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are right up there in the top three for hunters. So there's a lot of outdoorsmen, and there's a lot of guys in the plant that deer hunt. Deer season, opening week of rifle season is usually you better have your time in pre-scheduled months in advance, and sometimes it goes by seniority, and sometimes it's a bit of a fight to try to get that opening day off. Gotcha. So there must be a conflict where I would assume that a lot of the guys working at the Ford Motor Company and the gals too would be hunters. And how do you all put in for time at the same time during the season? The company pretty much, they expect it. So, a lot of times they have extras, or they'll bring part-timers in or stuff. When you have, I have 19 years seniority, and I save up all my vacation and personal time for that coveted, deer season. And I take a lot more time for bow season and the rut than some of the guys take for rifle. But, it basically goes by your work record and, your seniority and how much vacation time left. If you don't have any vacation time left, and the guy who has vacation time puts in for it, he's going to get it first. So gotcha. If you're hardcore like me, you basically don't take any vacations throughout the year except for deer hunting. So there's no trips to Florida or any kind of vacations for me unless we're off for other reasons. But I save every hour of vacation for deer hunting, and now I save a couple days off for the ATA show also. Right. I try to save 2 or 3 days for that every year, but after ATA show I will be out of vacation time until next June. So gotcha. Can't get sick or anything like that. So having some seniority at the plant helps. Yes, that definitely helps. All right, so 20 years. Got it. Yep, definitely helps. So, and if you come to work and you're a good worker and all that good stuff, and you have a good record. Have you ever been able to put together your own pickup truck? No, I haven't. Actually, I've worked on cars. I worked in a body shop, and then worked in stamping, and worked on cars my entire career at Ford Motor Company. But with this new contract, we're actually getting the new Ford Bronco. Well, we're getting the Ranger first, and then the Bronco is going to come afterwards. I think it's going to be 2020. Nice. The new Bronco. Yeah. The new Bronco. The Bronco's coming back. I like it. The Bronco's coming back, and the Ranger's coming back. No kidding. So, good days to come. All right. So you're a diehard deer hunter. We've met before. We've met at the ATA at a very brief passing, and you only go to the ATA if you're a pretty hardcore deer hunter and archer. And just following you on Facebook, we've interacted a few times. There, as we like to say, there's some guys that are just on this end of the spectrum. You're one of those guys. You put in a lot. It's evidenced by the time that you take off and the amount of time and effort you put into deer hunting. And you are exactly the kind of hunter we want to interview and dissect and break down all your strategies, all the things you do, because we want to be better hunters too. And we know you're at that upper echelon of that. So we'd like to kind of ask you a few questions, if that's cool. Oh, that's fine. I'm very humbled to actually, to be on this show. I listen to the show literally every week. I listen to it at work. And I've learned a tremendous amount, from this podcast, and just listening. I've listened to different episodes probably 3 or 4 times in a row just to
pick up on some of the little small stuff.
Yeah, I do
It
too.
was just last week I listened to the hammerbuck one when he was talking about rattling on the ground and
Yep.
and I remember a friend of mine from 15 years ago when he rattles, he ties a rope to his leg down to the ground to a log, and he'll actually rattle and shake the log on the ground to make it sound like two bucks are fighting on the ground. So I kind of picked up from that too. It's just always the little things that you learn just from listening to your guys' show, and that I really enjoy.
Just the little subtleties kind of helps.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I edit the show. You know, we do the interviews, we do the recording, and I sit down and edit it, and it takes me a long time to kind of get through it. And at the end of the day, I still go back and listen to the same show 3-4 times after it's been produced because I miss things even as I'm editing. It's just I find them interesting too, which is the kind of why we started this in the first place. And it's helped me a lot to change some of the tactics that I use. And, it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting show when it comes down to it. Now I'm a little biased, obviously, but I still think it's a good show.
Oh, it's one of the, I listen to, I don't know, about 4 or 5 different podcasts on Stitcher and some other podcast shows, and by far Big Buck Registry is right there up at the top. I mean, it's good. It's all good content. You guys are always on key and ask the right questions, and I really enjoy it.
Well, that's good to hear. I appreciate the feedback. That's fantastic.
That's great to hear.
Yep, very good.
Yeah.
So Paul, you spend a lot of time in the woods. When was the first time you actually stepped into the woods, and who brought you into the woods?
Oh, yeah. I've probably been going in the woods since I was 5 or 6. My dad is a hunter and avid outdoorsman, fishing, hunting. I grew up. We bought a cabin up north when I was 6 years old, and every other weekend we would spend up north. If we weren't up north, we were on the river or Lake Erie walleye fishing or salmon fishing or doing some kind of fishing. So I basically grew up hunting every weekend. I was born in the city, and so my parents got divorced. I lived in the city, but every single weekend we would head up north to the cabin up north, and I was going out hunting with my dad before I could even shoot a gun or have a license or anything like that. I was just sitting in the blind with him with my little pop gun or little BB gun or something like that. But started off, like any other kid, squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting. And then I think when I was 12, I took my hunter safety course and hunted for the first time myself. And I do remember back then it was really hard to get a doe tag, and you had to apply for a doe tag. And my very first year of being a hunter, I applied and I got a doe tag for the area. So I remember that was a big deal. But I think I was 12 years old. So it was my dad that basically took me out for the first time.
Gotcha. It's always good to have somebody kind of lead the way for you.
Oh, yeah.
So you've been in Michigan, and I know that there was a point just recently where we were contemplating trying to get you together with Dusty in Ohio because you were hunting Ohio. But as it turns out, Dusty was in New Hampshire at the time you were in Ohio. So it didn't work out. But I was curious to find out you hunt Michigan, you hunt Ohio. I wanted to see kind of what the contrasts and differences were between hunting the two states. And what do you see as the different aspects of hunting Ohio versus hunting Michigan?
Well, I hunt southern Ohio, so I'm down in the mountains, so it's totally different. Northern Ohio, I've hunted northern Ohio a couple times, and there's not that much of a difference. It's farm, ag fields, wood lots, same kind of areas that I'm hunting here in Michigan, in southern Michigan. There is a big difference in the season scheduling and the buck to doe ratio, and just the overall quality of the deer in Ohio seems to be better in Michigan. I kind of contribute that to some of our really long rifle season. Ohio, in my opinion, has it pretty much down. They've got a really good system. They got a really good season. Their gun season's after the tail end of the rut. Michigan's gun season starts November 15th, runs all the way to December 1st, And then I think it's December 4th this year. There's like a 2-week-long muzzleloader season. And then as soon as muzzleloader season's done, you've got a extended private land doe season with a gun all the way to January 1st. So from November 15th to January 1st, the deer in Michigan are getting shot at. They get about 3 days break there. Wow. They're getting shot at with a gun. So the hunting in Michigan, there's a lot more pressure, it seems like, than Ohio.
Okay. Interesting.
There's just a lot more hunters, a lot more pressure. It's just the age structure of the deer is just not. I mean, there are big bucks in Michigan, but I've got a couple buddies that moved out of state. They've moved to, a buddy that moved to Montana, and then he was hunting Montana, Iowa, Kansas, and then he came back to Michigan, and man, these are some of the smartest deer in the country just because of all the pressure that they have on them.
Right.
I'm sure you probably see that in New Hampshire, where you're at too.
Yes. Yeah. They seem to be a little smarter or at least in tune with their environment and the people that are stalking them. Yeah. They seem to pick up on that fairly quickly and pattern the hunter.
Yeah.
Exactly. We try to pattern the deer. They pattern the hunter in New Hampshire.
How do you know what they do, Jay? You can't even find a deer.
I actually know, as you start to study your own woods, and over the years you start to figure out what they do, and it is uncanny when they know hunters in the area, kind of that they shift out of the area. You can just tell. You can see the tracks. From the cameras. You wouldn't know it unless you lived here because there's not a lot of them, but it takes a lot of time to study them because you don't have a lot to go on. But yeah, no, that's what happens.
We have a lot of deer in southern Michigan. There is a lot of deer. It just seems like there's the mature bucks they go nocturnal and with the pressure. Now, granted that I leave right when the rut starts, and I spend 10 to 13 days in Ohio. So I'm missing the prime hunting in Michigan.
Okay.
Every year because I'm in Ohio. So a lot of my friends in Michigan they are successful, but they're successful a lot of times on the bigger mature deer during that, you know what I mean? The peak stage of the rut, the chasing, when the mature bucks they're on their feet and they don't care about anything else but chasing does. So I miss out all that. I head to Ohio every year, and I get to experience that down there, and I just enjoy it down there a little bit better.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the things that kind of intrigued me about one of your recent Facebook posts is that you had a buddy drop you off by boat to get to a certain place that you wanted to hunt. Can you tell us about why that happened and what that was all about? Yeah.
I've been hunting a certain chunk of public land down in Ohio that I've been pretty successful on, and it's I have a friend that owns some private land, and I access it through there. And I've had it kind of to myself for bow season. There's one or two other guys that hunt it with me, different times of the year. And usually we might be in camp together a couple days, but most of the time when I go down there, I'm by myself. And the week before I got there, one of the guys that was hunting down there ran into another guy from out of state, and they had words. I don't even want to call them another hunter because some of the stuff that they did usually it's to me a hunter is that this is not a hunter. These guys had words with a buddy of mine, and he asked if they were hunting the next day, and they said yeah. So he told them he would go somewhere else. That way they would have the spot to themselves. And before they left, they decided to ruin the spot for, I think, everybody. They hung the gut pile in a corn bag 10 feet from the tree. I found mothballs. This was a week before I even got there. So I hung all my stands. I started to hunt. And after about 4 days of morning till dark sits and only seeing 2 deer, I realized something was different. Something had changed. And when I started kind of looking around and pulling cameras and not getting pictures, and then I found the mothballs. So I didn't find any scrapes, any rubs in the typical spots from the previous 5 years that there was always scrapes. And I had to change things up, and we pulled out a bunch of maps and found some some ground. And two years before that, I was down there in the summertime. I have a lot of friends that live down there, and was down there fishing and hanging out. And we were fishing a lake, and my buddy had mentioned that it was actually public land around it. And my brain started turning. I'm like, you ever see any hunters out here? And he said, no, I have never seen anybody out here in the fall. So after all that happened, I showed up at his house and asked him if his boat was running, and he said, yeah, and said, let's go try that spot. So I got all my gear the one morning and loaded it in his boat, and he dropped me on shore, and I headed off up this big hill, and I didn't get to go where I wanted to go. There was a 30-foot cliff in my way, but I only hunted it one day, but it was definitely an experience, and it was definitely pretty cool. We kept on talking about the ride out with all my bow on the front of the boat and all my gear, and I told my buddy, I said, man, how cool would this be if we were coming out of here tonight with a big buck laying on the front of your boat pulling up to the boat ramp.
That would be cool.
But I'm gonna put it, it's definitely going to be on my list. I'm going back in the spring and early summer, and I'm going to do a lot more scouting this year, and definitely going to get the map and put some boots on the ground in that area and check things out, and just try to get. One of the things I learned from a couple successful hunters that I know down there is, and in Michigan, you really got to get to the places that the other hunters aren't willing to go. If you want to be successful in some of these hunts, you've really got to do stuff that other people just too much work for them. So, to me, I'm a big fisherman, and, I was a charter captain on Lake Erie and professional walleye fisherman for about 3 or 4 years. So me loading up a boat and dropping it in the water and driving is it's like putting my pants on. I mean, it's just something that I know how to do, and it doesn't bother me, and I can just do it I can back up a boat and hook up a boat in about 2 minutes. So it's not a big deal for me.
It's kind of cool though to be dropped off in a hunting location by boat. It's kind of
it is. It's really cool. I was hoping he'd be able to find me on the way in the dark on that night. But yeah, it was definitely cool. I mean, when he pulled away, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna start heading up this hill and see what I see. But it was really cool. Hopefully we can try out that spot a little bit more, and hopefully it would be successful. We can put a buck on the front of his boat here next year.
That's neat. I like that. Yeah. So you must have a pretty interesting backpack full of stuff. I know you've tested out a bunch of different products, and I was wondering if Dusty could kind of lead the way here and kind of dissect what you bring to the woods with you.
We're going to figure out what you pack in and out with you every time you go to the woods. Are you packing a backpack?
Oh yeah, I always have my backpack with me, pretty much, especially during the rut, because it's all day sits with me during the rut.
Right. Any particular brand?
Oh, actually, no. I don't even know the brand of backpack I use. It is. I picked it up about 5 or 6 years ago from a hunting store, and it had pretty much a couple things I liked about it. It had a light inside of it, and it had 2 spots for water bottles, and I don't even know what the brand is on it. I'm actually looking at buying a couple new backpacks this year because I'm going on an elk hunt next year in Idaho. So I've been looking at a couple different brands, Horn Hunter and Badlands and some other ones, but I'm actually going to upgrade the backpack next year. So
very nice. Let's get into what's inside this backpack. Talk us through what you put in your backpack to carry in with you.
All right. First and foremost, my backpack's always going to be my Ozonics. I carry my Ozonics, my 8-hour battery, my 4-hour battery, and that's in there. My binoculars are in there. I have an Outdoor Edge sling blade knife I always carry in there. Extra flashlight, extra batteries, matches, a little bit of rope, zip ties, water, hand warmers. I always have my pull rope attached to it. It's actually it's a big game. It's on a retractable cord. I have that clipped to it. What else is in there? Bow holder. You gotta have that. A spare safety, the the part that you hook to the tree. I always carry a spare one of those in my pack just in case. A lot of times when I hang my sets, I always hang either a lifeline in the tree, one of the safe lines that you attach at the bottom of the tree stand and you can slide it up. But a lot of these sets that in Ohio, when I just throw them up for a day or two, or if I carry my climber, I always want to have a spare safety harness strap with a carabiner in my backpack. So I'm big on always wearing my safety harness. I've been wearing them since before they actually came out with the vest version, but it's a must for me. I won't sit in a tree stand without my safety harness.
Yeah, that's something that's often overlooked, and too many horror stories about not using the safety harness. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's really no reason not to use one anymore. Every tree stand you buy comes with one, and then the other day I was just at Cabela's and they had the big game. It was a big game Iron Man, and they had a couple muddies there that were $34.99 and $50. So I tell my friends that I won't let anybody that I hunt with that hunt on any of my leases or any of my properties. I won't let them hunt without a harness. If they don't want to wear a harness, then they're not hunting with me. So it's an absolute must. So. But yeah, the backpack's always got, in the rut, you're going to sit all day. So I'm going to have a sandwich in there, a couple things of string cheese, a power bar, and two bottles of water to make it through the day.
What kind of sandwich do you pack?
I've been trying to get in shape for Idaho next year. I'm going on an elk hunt. So turkey and cheese usually on wheat bread right now. So. And then
nice.
A fit bar usually to get me through the day.
Nice. Very nice. So is that all the contents of your backpack?
That's, actually spare release. Got to have a spare release in there. Got to always have spares of everything.
Right. You just never know, do you?
No. I think about 15 years ago, I went to pull my bow back and my release broke. So I went and bought a new one and bought another one of them, and I put one in my backpack. I don't think I've ever even used it. It just sits in my backpack. It's been in there for probably 10 years. So you always got to have a spare.
Yeah, and it seems like the more you talk to people, the more that release gets left at home or in the truck or wherever you may leave it. And when you get to the woods, it seems like your backpack catches your eye. You always load your backpack, but that release may not always be with you. And it's nice to have a backup plan, especially if you're traveling a long distance.
I shoot a thumb release too. So I clip that onto the string. I've never done it, but I'm always afraid that I'm going to end up hitting it and it's going to fall to the ground, or I'm going to drop it or anything like that, and a big buck's going to come in, and I'm not going to have a release. So I always keep that spare release in my backpack.
Yeah, it makes sense for sure. So we got into your backpack a little bit. Let's get into your camouflage that you're wearing while you're in the tree stand. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny because I've got so much stuff. I literally, the other day I went through all my hunting gear, and I've got way too much stuff. I've been wearing Realtree for the last couple of years, but this year, right before my hunt, I looked at the weather, and it was in the 70s and mid 70s and high 60s, and I work at an archery shop in Michigan at Shoepex, and so I went in there, and I've been wanting to get it, and they have First Light merino wool, so I ended up getting a whole system. I got a lot of the merino wool base layers and then the clothes, and I got it all in ASAT and camo. My boss there, Brian, is probably one of the best deer hunters in the state of Michigan, and he believes in it, and he's wore it since it's been out, I think 20 years now. And so I decided to give it a try, and I really, really like it. I haven't had a lot of time in the woods with it this year yet, but it does seem to work a little bit better than the traditional camo. I've had a lot of deer just kind of walk right by me and look at me and just not even, it's just almost like they see right through you. So I'm definitely going to be switching over to a lot of the First Light stuff and the merino wool and in the ASAT pattern.
No kidding. So tell us the difference. What's the difference between that camouflage and the others on the market?
The ASAT camo, if you look at it, it looks really plain to the human eye. There's just a lot of browns and tans in it. There's really no green in the entire camo pattern. And the real tree, it just seems like, the real tree and the mossy oak and all the other ones, you've got it looks like a picture. It looks like branches and leaves and all that. And the way my boss explained it to me was he's been using it for years. He asked me, he said, "Do you ever see a deer that has green on it?" No. He's like, "You ever see an animal that has green?" He said, "They're always brown or tan or black, and they blend in really well." Well, that's kind of the same concept as the ASAT. It's browns, blacks, and tans, and the green in the environment, it basically fills it in. And I've seen a lot of videos. I've watched a lot of videos on it, and they show it on the side of a mountain with a lot of green in it, and they have a guy sitting on the side of the mountain with the ASAT camo and then traditional camo, and it seems to really blend in. First Light did come out with their own version of camo. It's called Fusion, which is kind of it's a cross between like a Realtree and an ASAT. It's more the digital camo, and it seems to blend in as good or better than the ASAT. So I'm going to do a little experimenting this year. I'm probably going to buy a couple pieces of that, but it's still a little bit different than your traditional camo patterns.
Yeah, right on. Makes sense in different ways than others,
Yeah. I mean, when my boss asked me if I ever seen a deer that had green on it, and I was like thinking, yeah, you're kind of right there. And you think about it, I mean, deer can blend in. They could stand 30 yards from you, and you're looking at them for 5 minutes, and then you realize there's a deer standing in that brush pile, but they don't have any green on them, so it blends in they blend in pretty natural.
Yeah, right on, for sure. So we got into your backpack and your camouflage. What kind of bow setup are you using?
I'm shooting Bear Archery. I'm shooting the Bear Arena 34. I've been shooting Bear. I shot an Anarchy HC last year. I shot a 13-point, a 7-point, a couple does with it. And I'm shooting the new the Arena 34 this year. I love that bow. I'm actually going to keep that bow another year and shoot it this year. I am going to buy a backup bow for my trip out west. Just working at the archery shop and seeing a lot of the just kind of freak accidents that happen to people. Stuff, get run over by a four-wheeler, or fall off the truck and get run over by a tire, or broadhead hit the string, and thinking, yeah, I'm going to be driving out west and only have one bow, so I'm going to pick up a Bear Wild. It's a new bow they're coming out with, and it's the entire package, sight, rest, quiver, everything's $399. So I figure for $400, it's a really good investment just to have a spare bow.
Yeah, right on. Makes sense. So you're shooting Bear Archery. What kind of arrows are you shooting?
I am shooting Black Eagles. I'm shooting the Rampages this year.
Gotcha. And what are you tipping? That Rampage is the broadhead, I'm assuming?
Yeah. No, the Rampage is actually the
arrow.
The arrow.
Okay.
Black Eagle makes they make a carnivore, a zombie slayer, the Rampage that the Black Eagle makes is not the micro diameter, but it's a smaller diameter arrow.
Gotcha. Huh.
Yeah. I'm shooting that, and I'm shooting rocket broadheads.
Say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm shooting rocket broadheads, the meat
rocket
seekers.
Broadheads. Okay, yeah, got you. Okay. Any particular, how many grain?
I'm shooting 100 grains.
100 grain. Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got into your backpack, we got in your camouflage, and we got in your bow. Do you use any kind of cover scents when you head out to the woods?
I really don't use that much cover scent anymore. I spray all my clothing down. I call it my ozone room in my house. So in my basement where I keep all my hunting gear, I hang all my gear up and I run my ozonics in that closet for about 15 minutes, turn the clothes inside out, run it for another 15 minutes, and then I take all my gear and put it in a scent-free airtight bag and then put it into a tote. So essentially all my gear is scent-free, and I do that with all my stuff. I do that with my backpack. I do that with my bow. I do it with everything I'm going to have out in my stand. I'm going to run it through that ozone room, and then I'm going to take it out into the field. I do spray my boots and probably up to my knees with scent spray before I walk out. Just the stuff that's going to be touching grass or anything that a deer can smell me walking through the woods.
Gotcha. Huh. Okay. Now let me ask you this: have you ever thought about using that Ozonics, the Ozonics, right before you head to the walkout? Just kind of dusting your boots with it a little bit.
I mean, I keep my boots are in that room also, so they do get set free, but I still spray them down anything I make contact with the ground with. And then when you're in the field, the Ozonics works really good. I still take my scent free showers. I still use scent free soaps. I do all that. I don't wear my hunting clothes in my truck. I keep them in the back in the tote. I change. If I have a long walk and it's warm out, I'll usually just wear a base layer, and I'll either put my clothes on my back or strap them to my tree stand or my backpack or something like that. And I'll change when I get to the bottom of the tree. I'll put the rest of my gear on and then climb up the tree. I think a lot of the things I was doing wrong for years was I was wearing those clothes. I was walking out of the woods. I was sweating with all my stuff on. And then as soon as you get to your truck, you take all your gear off and you put them into a scent tight bag, or a tote. And you still have all the bacteria and all the sweat on your clothing, and you're putting it into that tote, and then you're going to take it out in the next day or 3 days or next weekend, and then you're going to put it right back out and go hunting with it. So now what I do is I take it out off of me, put it into a tote, bring it home, hang it up, run it through those Ozonics, and then put it back into the tote. So it's scent free, it's dry. I also have a Scent Master box. I picked it up last year. And that's basically it's a carbon filter on the bottom of the box and a carbon filter on top, and it's got a heating element in it. So when you throw your clothes in it and you plug it into the wall, it runs, I think it's 130 degrees hot air through your clothing, and it descents everything, and it just dries everything. I know a little bit from listening to some of the stuff on the podcast and listening to other guys about bacteria. It'll grow in damp clothing, so I try to get rid of all that. You can hang your stuff up outside and on a nice fall day, and I think that's a little bit better than just locking into an airtight tote after you've walked out of the woods 20-30 minutes when you're walking out. So
right, and you say that you have a box that actually circulates 130 degree air. Yeah,
it's called a Scent Master box. They were made down in Ohio. I think the guy who invented them was down in Ohio. It's a big plastic box, and it's got almost like a shop vac motor in it, and it's got a heating element, and it has a carbon filter on the bottom and a carbon filter on top. You could throw jacket, pants, and your boots in there, your muck boots or whatever, and you turn it on. It's got a timer. It runs for an hour, and it circulates hot air through the box and essentially dries and cleans all your clothes. And then once I wear them a couple times, or if I know that they're soiled with, if I'm in Ohio and I have to walk off of a hill for an hour, I'll take it and descent it with the Ozonics.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
And I've used the Ozonics on so many things in the last year. You spill something in your car and it smells, you can put it on the dashboard and run it for a half hour of cooked fish in the house. And you know how you always have that fish smell after you fry fish, and I'll put it above the counter and run that thing for an hour in the house, and it's amazing what that thing will clean up. I had a buddy that spilled some gas in his toy hauler, and he told me he took his Ozonics and put it out there for a couple hours and came back and he couldn't smell the gas anymore. So it definitely takes the odors out of pretty much anything.
Interesting.
Yep.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. Ozonic seems to be the trick to get rid of the odor. What kind of tree stands are you using?
I've got pretty much every tree stand probably on the market. I like the muddy tree stands. I used to always buy you go and buy the $30 ones that are on sale or $40 ones that are on sale, and just to the point where you can only sit in them for 2 or 3 hours. And the older I'm getting, the I'd rather have less tree stands that are more high quality than more tree stands that I can't sit 2 hours in. But I've got the Muddy Pro Hunters, and I've got a couple other brands. I've got a Lone Wolf, and let's see, I've got some big game tree stands, and pretty much anything I can get my hands on. I've got a bunch of them. I got a nice couple nice climbers, and I've gotten away from the traditional sticks, the 20-foot just sticks that you attach together, and I've been using a lot of the Big Game makes the stagger sticks. They're separate. They're about 32 inches, and I like those because I can put those in trees with big knots in them or branches or that twist. And I like to set my stands in trees that have 3 or 4 more trees either growing out of the trunk or that are nearby for cover. I try not to set any of my hanging stands anymore in just in a single bare tree. I'm 6'3" and 215 pounds, so I need every little bit of help trying to hide up in the tree.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, Paul, it's a pretty good repertoire of stuff. And would you call yourself more of a bow hunter or a gun hunter?
I'm definitely more of a bow hunter.
Okay.
If I have to gun hunt, I use a muzzleloader. I think I've rifle hunted once in my life, and I haven't used a shotgun. We're only allowed to use shotguns in southern Michigan. I haven't used a shotgun for deer hunting in, I think, 10 or 15 years, something like that.
Okay.
I use a muzzleloader when I have to gun hunt, but there has been days that I actually take my bow out during gun season and just wear an orange hat. So I'm definitely more of a bow hunter.
Okay, gotcha. Now, when you step into the woods, and this is more on a philosophy of hunting, what's your goal? My
goal?
Yeah.
Well, I guess for most hunters is probably to bag that big buck, but I honestly I love being in the woods, and even if I don't see any deer, I love to be in a stand. The days I have to be at work during deer season, especially in November, it just kills me. So I just enjoy being in the woods and watching the sunrise and watching the sunset. And I think every time I get in my tree stand, there's always something that you either learn or some kind of experience that you see it's just nature. I just love being outdoors. It's definitely my passion. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't hunt or fish. It's definitely part of me. It's definitely part of my lifestyle.
Yeah. And if you find a place, like let's say you're starting from scratch, mm-hmm. you have knowledge about the hunting itself. How do you go about designing the places where you want to hunt? There are obviously different strategies. You go to mapping first and then do some scouting. What's your strategy when you're entering into a new spot to hunt?
First of all, I kind of look at it and I try to see if it's easy for people to access. If it's really easy for people to access, a lot of times I won't even set foot on it. I look for pieces, and this is when I try to hunt public ground. Some of the private land that I hunt in Michigan, it's a different story. It's so hard to find land here that basically if one comes available, you look at a topo map, and if it looks good, you get it. So when I'm looking at new pieces of property that are accessed for other people, I look at some of the access points. If it's really easy, if it's off a main road, if it's really easy to get to, then that means a lot of people are going to be hunting it. When we did the boat thing in Ohio, basically looked at it like, all right, there's a swamp in between these 2 points, and nobody can even. It's a 4-mile walk from the road to the point where I can get dropped off by boat. So unless someone's willing to take a boat across there's not going to be your average guy that's going to pull over into a parking spot and walk 15 minutes to get to a stand. So I try to look for spots that are not easily accessed. Lots of cover, bedding, fields, feeding areas. just the typical spots that whitetail like. But when you're hunting public ground and you're hunting other kind of ground that there's other hunters, you want to try to get to the spots that you know are the hardest for them to get to, that people won't take the effort to go to. So
Okay.
I kind of have a little philosophy, you know, people, after you shoot a couple nice bucks, you know, you always get the question that people ask you, do you think you're a better hunter than other guys? Or, you know, I get asked this a couple times at work, you know, are you a better hunter than that guy? And I always respond as I'm not a better hunter than any but other hunter. I just probably work a lot harder than most of the guys. I just put that extra effort in there. I mean, if you're willing to work 10 times harder than the other guy, then you're going to be more successful. So
let's talk about that. Let's expand upon that a little bit. What do you mean by working harder? What does that mean to you?
I mean, it means it's a lot, you know. Guys that are a lot of guys aren't willing to give up all their vacation time for deer hunting. You know, I give up all my vacation every year, focus it all on deer hunting. That's part, you give a lot of sacrifices when I guess quoted a hardcore hunter, but, just the work you put into it, the shooting all summer, your equipment, the money you spend on your equipment, just everything that goes into hunting this way, I guess. I hunt from October 1st until the time change. I'm pretty much in the woods almost every single day. I go to work, I come home, I hunt at my house a lot. So as soon as I get home, if I've got 2 hours to hunt, I hop in a stand behind my house that not going to blow out deer or anything like that. But it's just the effort that you put toward it.
Okay.
If you want to be successful, and you want to, and it's not going to happen every year. I've had 5 really good years, and I know you have to look at it like no one can shoot monster bucks every single year and still have, if it's your job, I guess you can do it. But if you have you have a career and you have another job to pay the bills and all that stuff, you're going to have to sacrifice some things, but it's definitely a lot. You gotta put the effort in. You gotta hang stands before season. You gotta do all your scouting the following year. You've just gotta do the work that it takes to kill big bucks like that.
Okay. If you had to kind of categorize your style of hunting, what would you say it is? And what I mean by that is it stand hunting, still hunting, stalking, tracking? What style of hunting do you do the most? I'm
definitely a stand hunter. I think I've stalked 2 whitetail with a bow, but I'm definitely a tree stand hunter. Definitely a tree stand hunter. I do have some ground blind setups, and I've killed some deer out of a ground blind, but I'm a 25 to 30 foot tree stand hunter.
Okay. 25 to, okay, gotcha. So the
all
higher
my
the
sets
better.
the higher the better. Most of my sets are at a minimum 24 foot up. Some of the spots that you get into that has a lot of cover and a lot of thick cover, if you get too high, then you don't really have any shots and you've got to do a lot of trimming. So those sets, but a minimum probably 22 foot for scent control and being spotted and those kind of things.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Paul, I'd like you to take us on a memorable deer hunt if you could, and think for a few minutes about which one you want to take us on. I'll have Dusty kind of do the conducting here, but I'd like to if we could do a play-by-play, like 48 hours before the kill, and take us on that hunt and as if we're there with you. And where are we going to go?
Well, I guess we're going to go to Ohio to Mohawk, which would be, I think you guys seen it on it's my Facebook profile on Facebook, but it's a buck that I had about four years hunting him. I seen him. We got a picture of him in 2009, the first year I hunted this area in Ohio, and he was pretty much a ghost. We got a picture of him that first year. I hunted that property the very first year in 2009, and I didn't see a single deer the entire year. I probably hunted 3 different times, long weekends, 4-day weekends, and I never seen a deer on hoof. They were clear cutting all around it. There was a lot of things changing, and I got a picture of that deer, and that's the deer that brought me back the following year. Following year, I shot a nice 11 point with a drop, and then the year after that, I shot 9. And I think it takes me to 2012, and I was hunting, I want to say I was hunting 7. That would have been my 7th all-day set. So I was down there for about 9 days, and I had some pretty good encounters leading up to that. I had 2 days before I harvested that buck. Kind of got a little slow. I think the day before I actually harvested him, I only seen 1 deer from morning till dark. But the day I shot him was on the 12th of November, and I got up that morning and I got my climber, and I decided to go a little bit farther back than where I've been hunting, and I got there real early, about an hour before sunup, and set up my climber, got up in a tree about, I want to say I was 30 foot up. I'm hunting in real hilly terrain down there, so sometimes you're hunting on the side of a hill, and if you're not high up, then if the deer come from behind you, they're either eye to eye to you or they're looking down on you. So I like to hunt high down there, and I got settled into my stand about an hour before daybreak and spent the entire day there, and had 2 does bed down about 100 yards from me. And I think it was about 3 o'clock, I heard a buck chasing a doe in the bottom a couple 100 yards from where I was at, but it was a real still day, and I could hear things pretty well, and I could hear this buck chasing this doe around, and all of a sudden I looked up in the clear cut and I could see this buck, and he was 150 to 200 yards away, and I didn't even need my binoculars to know he was a shooter. And when I did put my binoculars on him, I looked at him for about 15 seconds, and I had to put my binoculars down because I started to shake. So I calmed myself down, and I threw a grunt at him, and he kept on walking, and I threw a bleed at him, and he kept on walking, threw little rattling sequence at him, and he just kept on walking. And finally I threw a snort wheeze at him, and he stopped and got his attention, and then I threw a grunt, a little bit of rattle at him, and all of a sudden he turned and he flared out his fur a little bit, and he started raking up against a tree, and I knew that I had upset him, and he started heading my way, and he had to go down into a bottom where I couldn't see him anymore. So when he got down into that bottom, I grabbed my rattling horns, and there was a small tree that was next to me, and I grabbed the horns and I started rubbing the horns up and down on the tree and thrashing them around kind of the same way he was doing before he decided to go in that bottom. And I could hear him down there, and he was getting upset. And I look up on the clear cut, and there was a doe standing there, and all of a sudden she turned around and started running away from me. And about 10 seconds later, he come up, and he was running after that doe. So I watched this monster buck running away from me at 3:30 in the afternoon, and my heart sank, and I was trying to call work to see if I can get another week off, and I didn't have cell phone service, and everything was running through my mind like, I can't leave until I have another encounter with this deer. About 15, 20 minutes later, I'm sitting there and I hear something to my right, and a doe pops out, and all of a sudden another doe pops out. So I'm standing up in a climber in a fairly small tree, and I'm got my back up against a tree, and I have my bow in my hand, and these deer are underneath me for about 5 or 10 minutes, about 30 yards away. And it was a little chilly that day, so I decided to hang my bow back up because my hand was getting cold. And when I went to hang my bow back up, I looked up on the top of the hill, and he was just standing there staring at the does. He was about 80 yards away, and I didn't put my bow on the hanger, and I looked, and he started, it was a fairly steep hill, and he stuck his legs out in front of him and started sliding down the hill. And when he got about halfway down the hill, I drew my bow and figured when he hit the bottom of the hill, it was 34 yards, I was going to let him have it. Well, when I went to go draw my bow, I ended up getting busted by the two does that were next to me, and they blew, and he stopped, and he was on the side of the hill, and I knew he was about 45 yards, so I put my 40-yard pin on him, and I shot, and it went through, shot him a little low, and just a little forward, and it went through his shoulders, and he ended up running about 20 yards, and he stopped. And the first thing I thought was, oh my God, I missed him. So I ripped another arrow out of the quiver, and I ranged him. He was 62 yards, and I grabbed the arrow and put it in the bow and drew back and put my 60-yard pin on him, and I shot again. And I kind of describe it like when you get in a car accident and you do something, you turn the wheel and you slam on the brakes, and you remember doing all that stuff, but you kind of don't. It just happened so fast, and it was just so much of an adrenaline rush. And he ran another 30 yards and stopped. And he was so consumed over those two does and the thought, I think, of another buck in there that he just, I shot him twice, and he just stood there. And I couldn't believe it. I thought I missed him. And so he stood in the clear cut. All I could see was the top of his head and his rack. And I heard him fall about 10 minutes later, and then I heard him try to get back up. And at that moment, I knew I'd hit him. And so I waited in my stand for about an hour and a half after dark, and I climbed down as quiet and as slow as possible. And I got on the ground, and I remember I take 3 steps, and I count 30 seconds, and I take another 3 steps, and I snuck out of there as quiet as I could. Got back to my friend's house and told him I think I just killed Mohawk. Yeah. And we were contemplating on going and looking for him that night, and we didn't. We ended up waiting until the morning and went out there, and I had actually hit him both times, and he basically went about 30 yards from where I last saw him. So it was a pretty awesome experience.
Smoked him twice.
Smoked him twice. And it's amazing that the strength that these deer have, especially during the rut. I mean, that first shot should have killed him for sure, and it probably eventually did. But I mean, it didn't even faze him. It didn't even seem like he was hit. Like traditionally, they'll just run, and he was hit, and he ran about 30 yards, and he stopped, and he was just consumed over those does. So it's amazing what kind of adrenaline those deer can get when it's the peak of the rut.
Wow.
But that was a deer that we had seen no one's actually seen him on hoof until the day I shot him. And we've had pictures of him for 4 years, and we aged him at about 8.5 years old. And it's crazy a deer that big can live in an area that no one can ever lay eyes on him. If it wasn't for trail cameras, we wouldn't even have known he was there. But
what a great story.
It is. It's pretty awesome. I'm pretty proud of that buck. He scored a 166, and when we scored him, everybody thought he'd score more. And I told everybody, I said, you know what? I don't care what he scores. He's 8.5 years old, and I would rather have him than any other buck that we've ever seen down here.
Right.
So I was pretty proud of him.
Tremendous story and tremendous deer.
Yep.
Awesome. So Paul, if you had to pick just one and only one deer hunting tip, what would that number one deer hunting tip be?
Oh man, there's so many tips.
So many good tips.
So many good tips.
Got to pick one.
You got to pick one.
Your favorite of all time.
My favorite of all time, I guess, is I constantly try to learn as much as possible with these animals and just with hunting in general. As much as you think you know, you don't really know as much. I learn so much every time I sit in a stand. I learn something new every single year. I learn something new every podcast I listen to or book I read or video I watch. I try to pick up little tiny subtleties or little tiny things that people do and try to apply them to my hunting style. Just try to keep on learning and keep on trying to pick up from other people. I'm fortunate to know some really, really good hunters, and I've been taught a lot of good things from some really great guys. And when I find those guys or those hunters that are really successful, I sit down and I just pick their brain, or I try to remember those little things they say about something, or about the wind, or hunting during the moon, or any little subtleties, and I try to just pick up on that. So I always try to listen and try to find those guys that you can learn stuff off of.
Gotcha. And is there a book or a magazine that you would refer to as a good manual of how to do things?
There's a book, and I also have his videos. There's a guy in Michigan. His name's John Eberhart, and this book is called The Eberhart Way. The guy's phenomenal deer hunter. He's hunting in Michigan. He's killing all his deer on public land or knock on doors kind of land. He doesn't lease anything. He's just one of those guys that I've always looked up to. I've got an opportunity to actually do some shows with him and just pick his brain and just some of the stuff that he comes up with, and some of the things he does is just it's so simple, but it's just unbelievable. Some of the little things he does that most hunters don't even think about, don't even do. He's a pretty amazing hunter, but he's killed some giant bucks. He killed 2 really nice ones this year in Michigan, and I think one of them was on public land too. So
Gotcha.
The Eberhart Way, I think he has a website. It's called deerjohn.net.
Okay.
And deer is spelled DEER. So he's definitely a guy you want to get a book and read his book.
Sounds like somebody we should have on this show.
You definitely need to have him on the show.
Okay.
I can get you some of his contact information.
Okay. And we all have these items, these one thing. Maybe it's a good luck charm. Maybe it's a pacifier. Maybe it's actually something that's useful. Other than your firearm or weapon, what's the one thing you have to have in the woods with you to feel successful, or makes you feel like if you leave it in the truck, for example, you feel naked? What's that one thing you got to have with you at all times while hunting?
Well, I would used to say my rangefinder, but after the last 2 seasons of using an Ozonics, I don't hunt without one. There's been a couple times where I've actually forgot to take my battery off the charger, and I've gotten out in the woods and I pulled it out of my bag and I don't have a battery, and it just feels like your heart sinks, when you're out there and you don't have your Ozonics running. You're like, oh man, I hope I don't have a deer come downwind or anything like that. But lately it's definitely been my Ozonics. It's in the stand with me every single hunt all the time, and I've used it enough now that I'm really confident in the way it works, and I'm learning a little bit more and more every time I hunt. There is some times that you will get busted with one if it's extremely windy or you don't have the unit pointed in the right direction with the wind or the right angle. But the more you use it, the more you definitely will figure it out.
Gotcha. And how old are you now, Paul?
I am just turned 38.
38. So, Paul, what would the Paul of today tell the 18-year-old Paul back then, knowing what you know today?
Oh, man. The 18-year-old Paul, I would tell him to get more into it than I was back when I was 18. I've always hunted. I've never missed a season, but I definitely wasn't into chasing big whitetails as I am now. I always bow hunted, and it just seemed like it wasn't a priority back then to hunt the rut as much as I do now. So I guess basically spend more time in the woods because it's the thing that calms me and makes me who I am.
Gotcha. Paul, it's been a pleasure, man. I can't thank you enough for joining us. I learned a lot. You're a tremendous deer hunter, and thank you for letting us kind of pick that apart and figure out what makes you tick and make it better for all of us as we're listening to how you go about your day in the woods. It's been quite an honor. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's an honor to be on this show. I mean, I've listened to it for quite a while. I'm pretty sure I've listened to every single episode, and just to be on it's an honor. So thank you and Dusty for giving guys like me, working guy and breaking into the industry and all that, just something to listen to and to learn from for every week for an hour and a half every week. So
we appreciate
everything you guys do. So,
Dusty, do you have any last questions for Paul before we let him go?
Tell me about this Thunder Chicken Award I've been seeing.
The Thunder Chicken Award. So this year was really my first year turkey hunting. I've turkey hunted once or twice before, but I'm a big walleye fisherman. I used to do a lot of tournaments, and I actually have I have captain's license, so I used to guide on Lake Erie and fish pretty much every day in the spring. So I never really turkey hunted until this year I got into it. When I started pro staffing for Hadala, my boss at Hadala, all the Michigan guys, we have the Thunder Chicken Award. So all the reps and pro staff guys and a lot of the guys that work at all the shops that we do shows at, basically we have a little competition, little fun competition. There's no money involved or anything like that. It's the big Thunder Chicken trophy is basically what you're hunting for and bragging rights. But it goes by the weight, the beard length, and the spurs, and then you have an extra point for shooting it with a bow, and you have an extra point for shooting it on camera. So this year I took it upon myself that I was going to turkey hunt, and I was going to win the Thunder Chicken Award. So a friend of mine from Ohio never turkey hunted either, and me and her got some decoys and got some blinds and started hunting, and with some help from one of my friends down the road that's a really good turkey hunter. He kind of took us under his wing and helped us out, and we ended up hunting turkeys for the first time in May, and I ended up last weekend of the season, ended up shooting a 24-pound bird with 1 3/4 spurs and a 9.5-inch beard on camera, and I ended up winning the Thunder Chicken Award. So that's
nice.
The story behind that.
Congratulations. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That was actually, I don't know if it was on my Facebook, the day before I shot it, that bird stayed in its roost until 1:30 in the afternoon. So from sunup until 1:30 in the afternoon, that bird was in his roost. I took a picture of him through my binoculars and sent it to my boss and told him I'm about to win the award. And they kept on texting me. I got texts from my friends for hours after I put that picture on Facebook, and everybody kept on asking me if I killed it yet, And I said, nope, it's still in the roost. And I've never seen anything like that. I'm not a big turkey hunter, but all the guys I've talked to said, yeah, they usually don't stay in the roost until 1:30. And he stayed in the roost until 1:30, flew down into a field, and the very next day I was set up on the edge of that field, and I didn't call to him when he was in the roost like I did before, and I just let him fly down, and basically at about an hour after daybreak he flew down, and I ended up getting him within 60 yards and got him on the ground.
Gotcha. I turkey hunt a lot, and I don't think I've ever seen a turkey hang out on a roost till 1:30, maybe 10 o'clock. And I've seen them running on the ground, at night in the pitch dark, but I have never, ever seen them stay on the roost till 1:30.
I watched him through my binoculars. He took a nap. He laid on the branch. There's a train tracks pretty close. The train would go by and blow its horn, and he would gobble at it, and he just stayed. I don't know if he's seen me. I don't think he did. Everybody says he had to see me. I was in a big, huge brush pile, camoed out, hardly moving, and just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I had my decoys are out in front of me, and I thought for sure he's going to hop out of this roost and land right in the field and go right to my decoys, but he didn't. This was a bird that a couple other guys from the archery shop have been hunting all year, and they said the bird was old and smart, and he knew something was up, and he knew something was wrong, and he stayed up in that tree. And man, what a long day from sun up until 1:30. And then when he finally flew down, I was relieved because I can finally get up and have a drink of water and go back to my truck. So I would have rather killed him, but I had a game plan for the next day, and it worked out pretty good.
That's awesome.
So I get bragging rights. I have to give the trophy back after this year, but I'm hoping I can win it 2 years in a row. But it's at my house, and it's sitting underneath my mantle with all the fishing stuff. And every now and then I get to send a picture to a couple of the guys that I work with and rub it in a little bit more. But that's basically the whole gist of the Thunder Chicken Award was bragging rights for 1 year.
Gotcha.
So.
All right. Very good.
Pretty cool.
Paul, thanks for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast. Hopefully we can have you back on the show sometime soon.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He is definitely one of those on the hardcore end of the spectrum kind of hunters that we need to interview all the time on this show.
Yeah, for sure. And just, he said something there that it kind of sticks with me a little bit that, he talking about people asking if he was thought he was better than a lot of other hunters, and it's not always if you're better, it's if you put the time and drive into it to make it happen.
Right. He just said that he works harder than most other hunters that he knows,
and that's something there that will separate somebody that kills a decent buck every year out from the others.
Right. And he shoots big deer every year, and he kind of casually says, well, I shot a 10 and an 8. I'd kill to casually shoot a 10 and an 8. I'm lucky if I see a 10 or 8 all year long in New Hampshire. So, but he's getting it done, and he's going in by boat. He's got multiple plans. He's got maps and different strategies, trying to hunt where the hunters are not hunting, so that he can get to those areas of less pressure. That's somebody
that sees opportunity and capitalizes on it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So, well, thanks to Paul CURMI for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast and helping us dissect world-class deer hunters and finding out what makes them tick. Dusty, so do you have a Chubby Times tip of the week this week?
I do for sure.
Okay, what do you got?
The more and more I get into these trail cameras, and the more I work with them and mess around with them and set them up and different locations and different usage for different things. And there's all kinds of different applications for a trail camera. I'm not just speaking on Culver because of, they do sponsor me on Chubby Times Outdoors, but Culver cameras has taken my hunt to the next level. I used to set up your ordinary camera, some with white flash, some with red LED flash. And every time it seemed like it snapped a picture, the second or third picture, these bucks would be so alerted to the camera that would just spook them off.
Yeah.
So, I started running Culver cameras 2 years ago, and now I'm to the point where I may never run something different because of the fact that they come out with the Culver MP8 black, and what that means is that it actually flashes with a black lens. Still has the same red LEDs in it, but it's got a black screen. And that's something that's changed my buck activity on a food source. There's no more taking 3 pictures and the buck's gone. This camera takes 3 pictures and 5 minutes later it takes 3 more. The same buck that was there before when it took the pictures is still standing there doing the same exact thing that it was before without being disturbed.
Right.
And that's something right there that speaks volumes. When you got a mature buck and all the rest of the cameras prior to running the blacks with covert, the buck would actually be gone on the second set of pictures.
Yep.
And it's been a routine thing that the same buck is standing in front of the camera for 15, 20 minutes now versus the 30 or 40 seconds before.
I am absolutely in agreement with that. I have done these same field tests myself, and the red definitely alerts them, and you might get 1 or 2 pictures, but that might be the last picture you get of that buck.
Right. It just notifies them that there's a lot of human activity there. And if you think they're not paying attention to that camera flash going off in their face and you think it's not bothering them, try out a black lens on your camera. It's going to make a night and day difference on your mature buck activity on your food source or on a corn pile, whatever you got out. Even if the deer is walking by the camera at dark, that black flash is unbelievable how much it does not disturb their activity in a natural state.
It is an amazing advancement in technology so that you cannot detect a picture or a flash going off during the nighttime. It's really it's an amazing piece of equipment.
That's my Chubby Times tip of the week, Jay.
All right, man. I like it. So where can we find you, Dusty, when we're not hanging out here on the mic?
Yeah, you can shoot me an email at Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Facebook, facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can also look me up at facebook.com/Chubby Gobbler, or you can look me up on Instagram at Chasing Antler. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to invite you to check us out on the new Google Play Store, and that we have been officially accepted to their program, and you should be able to start playing podcasts very shortly. If you have an Apple device, you can find us on iTunes. Just do a search for Big Buck Registry. We're frequently in the top 10 and usually at least the top 50 in the outdoor podcast category. If you do listen to the show and you do use an Apple device, please subscribe to the show. And if you are a fan, leave us a 5-star review. That would be most appreciated. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can send me an email, j@bigbuckregistry.com. If you'd like to check out our Facebook, you can always go to facebook.com/bigbuckregistry, which is where we have just recently turned the 200,000 mark of fans that follow the Big Buck Registry podcast on our Facebook page. We are also, Dusty, approaching 300,000 downloads all time. So we're definitely reaching some milestones, and I can't thank everybody that listens to the show, that follows us on Facebook enough for just checking in and tuning into the show and tuning into the Facebook page and appreciating everything we're doing there. If you would like to have your Big Buck featured on our Facebook page and be famous for a day, you can go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. All the instructions are right there on how to share. You can also find us on Twitter, twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. And if you are in the heat of the moment and you just shot the biggest buck of your life, go to 724-613-2825. Give us a call, leave us a message, and let us know how it all went down. Well, Dusty, this has been a fantastic show, and as always, I'm looking forward to coming to Ohio to see you with our good buddy Greg and tearing up Ohio a little bit, see what we can do.
We're going to try to get you guys a buck in the truck on the way home.
Buck in the truck. I am looking forward to that, and I think that's a wrap, brother.
Well, I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott.
And this is another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.